Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. As you can see, we're back aboard EJ, and this week we're going to be going over the final preparation that we had to do before we could leave Delaware City and get underway. I guess we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. Now that we are back aboard, I do have to give the standard disclaimer. There will be interruptions. As I record this, 2 of the 3 pups are down here taking a nap. They just got some TREATS, so everyone is calm at the moment, but Neptune is upstairs doing his guard pup duties. He's almost always up there unless it's raining, and he'll probably find something to bark at. So, and we are riding out the tail end of a nor'easter that came through the last few days. So you might be able to hear the wind generator. It's been going for the last 4 days. So I don't know if you can hear that or not. It is much quieter this year since I changed the blades out. I'll get into that later. And this mic is actually pretty good at filtering out some of that stuff, so you might not actually even hear it. Naturally, one of the larger areas to prepare to get EJ back in the water is her bottom paint. Now, a boat's paint is divided into 3 different parts. There's the part that's above the water line. That's the topside paint. There's a little strip that's right at the water line, and I've heard that called 2 different things, a boot stripe or a boot top. I don't know which one's correct. And I can't be bothered to look it up. So, and then from that part down is the bottom paint. So there are a bunch of different types of bottom paints. Some have like or is it copper? I think it's a copper additive which inhibits growth, microbial growth on your hull. But I use an ablative bottom paint. When you roll it on, it's like a thick chalk. It goes on like paint, but it's very chalky, very viscous, and it dries very quickly, and it's actually designed to wear off as you go through the water. So the theory is that anything that would grow on your boat or stick to your boat like a barnacle, it's actually going to fall right off as you go through the water. Now you do need to maintain like a minimum speed to have that occur, and sometimes we run into a little bit of problems there, but the bottom paint does work very well in general. Once we sit somewhere for a long period of time, like if we get down to Matanzas Inlet, we will have some growth on our bottom hull because the natural current just is not strong enough to wash off that bottom paint. But I've got a long-handled brush, and I can actually clean most of the hull before we head north again. And that, when I'm like scraping off barnacles and stuff with my stiff brush, they come right off. So the bottom paint does do a very good job. Now you don't want to get it on there too thick. Usually so if it gets on too heavy, it actually has a tendency to flake off, and because of the nature of the product, it doesn't always have the best adhesion to the bottom, so you're always going to get portions of it that flake off, especially right around the water line where it takes a lot of abuse. So those spots, I always spot touch them up. So if I can see the barrier paint or the original bottom hull color, I will touch up all of those areas with the bottom paint. And then after I get that done, I'll come back through and apply an entire another layer over everything. Now you can't do that every year, because if you do, it'll just build up too thick, the bottom paint, and then it'll start flaking off more and more. So you kind of create your own problem if you do that. So next year I'll just spot touch it up. The last 2 years I have put on full coats, but next year it'll just be a touch-up year, probably for the next 2 years, to allow that to wear down again. The other part is the boot stripe or the boot top, and I just use a polyurethane paint on that. Oh, you okay, big guy? Just relax, I'm almost done, bud. So I just use a polyurethane paint on that. It's just a red color, and I've switched back and forth between Interlux and Petit. Last year I thought I was out of the Interlux, but this year when I was cleaning out bins, I actually found another quart of it, so this year I switched back to the Interlux just to use it up. And then I'll use the Petit going forward. I think the Petit actually held up a little bit better than the Interlux. Maybe that's why the Interlux isn't made anymore. I'm not sure. But so that's the gist of the bottom paint. And just on the boot stripe, the hardest part is taping it off, as with most painting jobs. And you do just sand it lightly with like a 320 grit in between the 2. I put on 2 coats, so in between the 2 coats. One other project that I did do is I did change out the blades on the wind generator. They do recommend that you change them out every couple of years. And ever since I installed that, I've had a vibration in it. I assumed it was because of the way that I installed it. I installed it in a very non-traditional way where it actually goes through the deck and is mounted below the deck. So the deck acts as its lateral support. So if you notice, most wind generators on a boat, they'll have two poles that go up that support the main pole, and I don't have any poles supporting it, so the deck actually acts as my support. So because of the non-traditional way that I mounted it, and I did it that way because I didn't have any other place to mount it other than where I did, and I couldn't put any support poles in because of the solar panel, so I had to come up with a different option, and that's what I came up with. So ever since I installed it, I have had a vibration, and I assumed it was because of the way I installed it, but I actually now know that it was the blades were they were imbalanced ever since I installed it. So the blades that come with a Primus wind generator, they're like a foam, like a stiff foam that's coated in like a plastic. So they're not the strongest things. And you do have to tighten them down over time, and you can actually hear the foam inside being compressed. So I just don't think it was a very good blade construction. So to replace those blades is $400. And you can buy carbon fiber blades that are produced by someone else for $425. So it was kind of a no-brainer to buy the carbon fiber ones. And it actually came with a new central hub. So I had to remove the hub and mount the new blades in the new hub, and now there are 0 vibrations. It is perfectly balanced. It wasn't a mounting issue. It was definitely a blade balance issue, just a little vibration that was causing the deck to vibrate, which got a little annoying. You know, when the wind is ripping and you're downstairs and you hear a little vibration, it can be annoying, but now that is completely solved. So if you do change out your regular turbine blades, if you have like a Silent Air X or any of the other Primus lines, there's Primus Marine, I think they've got 3 of them, Primus Air. But if you do go for the carbon fiber blades, you do have to trim the hub, or the nose cone, to fit on the new hub, because the blade mounts are just a little bit thicker. So you do have to trim out a little bit of the plastic on the nose cone. I can be a little ham-fisted, and I tried to force the nose cone on there and it shattered. And how much do you think that little plastic nose cone costs? $50, of course. So then when I went on, the second time to put it on, I noticed, I knew something was wrong, so then I trimmed it down and it fit fine. So just be aware, if you do go for the carbon fiber blades, you do have to trim the nose cone a little bit. There are 2 longer term projects that I did that were quite time consuming. At least one of them was, but I'm not going to get into them too far in depth here. I'm going to make a longer video after a year so I can assess how successful it was. So the first one that was pretty involved was I decided to try so the problem is EJ's got roughly 40 storage compartments that are against the hull. And when you're against the hull, you've got the outside is water, the inside is warm air when we're running our heater, and that temperature differential means you get condensation. So we always get condensation on the inside of the boat in those storage compartments. And when they're full of food, dog food, whatever else is in there, tools, that kind of stuff, there's not enough airflow, so mold forms. Now that can be a pretty big problem. I'll put a video here of one of the moldier compartments. They're not all this bad, trust me, but the mold can get pretty out of control. And normally once a year I'll remove everything from the compartment when we're like in Florida, and I'll clean it all with chlorine and then put it all back. But this year I decided to try this Aftershock paint, which is a EPA registered anti-fungicidal paint, and it's supposed to offer long-term mold inhibition or fungicidal properties. So I decided that was worth it, but it was a ginormous task. I had to pull everything out of every compartment. I had to clean it all with chlorine or bleach and get them nice and clean, and then paint every one of them. So I got about 3/4 of them done this year, so I'm hoping that in a year, or I can make a video and say, hey, it worked great, no mold. I'm not quite that optimistic, but if there's a reduction in mold even, that's going to be a wonderful thing. And besides, painting those compartments will make them easier to clean. So, you know, it is what it is. The other thing is the new outboard and dinghy. So I did get rid of Frank and Beans this last summer, and I now have what I was originally going to name Frank 2 and Beans 2. But I was thinking earlier, the new Frank and Beans are both smaller, so I'm actually going to name them Frank Jr. and Beans Jr. So now we've got EJ, which is El Jaleo, and we got FJ, which is Frank Jr., and we've got BJ, which is Beans Jr. So I thought it kind of worked. And of course, inevitably, you have to deal with a year's worth of food and all of your possessions, so you have to put all of that stuff away. And, you know, I just kind of want to touch on something that I don't think I've ever heard any other sailing channel ever deal with, and that is just the emotional turmoil that comes along with preparing for another season on the water. And you know, it's incredibly taxing, and I've been doing this for 5 years now, and I essentially move twice a year. I move all of my possessions off the boat, and then I turn around and move all of my possessions back on the boat. And I'm not gonna lie, it's getting old, and I'm getting worn down, and I'm getting tired, and I just really don't want to do it anymore, you know. Something's got to change. You know, coming into this year, just mentally preparing yourself for another year, there's always a hurdle that I have to get over in my mind. I don't know if it's the same with everyone else. You know, when you're doing your projects and stuff all summer, it's fine, but as you get down to the wire, you just have to change. You have to change your mode of thought. You literally have to turn a switch, and you have to get over the mental hurdle of going back out on the water again, and it's not easy. You know, this year, when I was putting stuff away, I just sat down and cried for about 5 minutes. And I know that's not, you know, it's not a very masculine thing to do, but I felt better afterwards. And you know, then I knew I was ready for another year. You know, it's tough. It's tough when you're out here by yourself. And it's, you know, it's tough. It's tough because I'm responsible for 3 other souls. And if I make a bad decision, you know, that could be the end of it. And I don't know. You know, yeah, trying to make the right decisions on where to anchor, when to sail, when not to sail, you know, to play it safe. And then this year started off bad. I knew when we were leaving Delaware City that we were going to run into a problem coming out of the C&D Canal. And it was just way worse than what the projections were. So it was horrible. And that starting off on the bad foot. And the reason why I left Delaware City, normally I wouldn't have. I would have waited 2 more days. But the reason why I left is because I didn't want to pay for 2 more days at a marina. And that's stupid. That was a mistake. I should not have done that. So I started off this year on the wrong foot because I made a financial decision to sail, which I promised myself years ago I would never ever do, but I did it, and it bit us in the ass. It's hard to start off the year when you're already apprehensive, you're already feeling a little bit of foreboding, and then you fuck up right out of the gate. So I don't know. I mean, I still love doing this. Like, I love this. And it's not... When I say being alone is tough, it's because I've got to do everything. If something goes wrong, I have to come up with the answer. I have to do everything. I have to manually steer. I don't have a functioning autopilot right now, which is a big problem. It's my problem. So I have to be upstairs steering every second of every day. If something goes wrong, I can't just run downstairs and address it. You know, I have to make sure everything's safe. You know, I have to get us someplace safe and then address the problem, whatever it is. I mean, I don't know what we would do if we were in the ICW and my raw water strainer got plugged. I mean, I guess I'd have to drop the anchor, even if no matter where we were, and then come down and fix it. But I don't know, it's tough. It's tough when you're responsible for everything and there's no one else to help, and you have to do it all yourself. And it's fine, but it's just having someone there. Even doing all the work is not a problem. It's just having someone there for support. And instead of having, you know, when shit goes sideways, if you have someone there, you know, it's very reassuring. Having another adult there. But essentially, I've got when something goes wrong, I don't have another adult there that we can support each other. I have 3 children. I have 3 children who are looking to me for support. And it's tough. It's really tough. You know, and I get a lot of crap because I stay on the Intracoastal Waterway. It's just safer for us. It's, you know, we can anchor every night. I can't sail overnight by myself. I just can't. I can't stay up for 24 hours anymore. I'm almost 50 years old. I'm getting old, damn it. But, you know, the ICW is, I think, is harder than going offshore. You have to contend with currents. You have to contend with shallow spots. You have to contend with debris in the water. And sure, there's debris offshore, but there's a hell of a lot of debris in the ICW. It's just hard. It's hard dealing with it all by yourself. And I don't know, I don't want to stop doing this. Something's got to change, because I just can't keep moving twice a year. It's just too much. So whether it's we move on the boat full time and I just hang out in Chesapeake Bay for the summer, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's emotionally draining going back and forth. It's okay, Wobble. Yeah, it's okay, Wobble. Oh, do you want to come down, Wobble? I have to get the princess. She needs to come in, so. All right, come on in, Wobble. What do you think, Prinny? You have a halo there, princess. All right. Come here. Come on, Mom. Why don't you come in and say hi? You just come in and say hi. Oh, yes. Okay, you just come in and say hi. What do you think? Okay. All right, you don't have to do that. Okay, did you want to say hi, Wobble? What do you think? Okay, you just come on back. So yeah, I mean that is that. Yes, it's okay, princess. Yes, it's okay, Wobble, it's okay. All right, I'm gonna get you guys some treats, okay? Just relax 1 second, and I'll get you guys some treats. And that's all I have to say about that. It's just, sometimes it's tough. This is not 100% a joyous recreation, you know. It can be draining at times. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Judy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week. So it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything. So hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.